So on December 17, 2019, all of us will be called upon to perform yet another civic duty as to participate in a referendum. It is to decide whether or not the Constitution should be amended to allow partisan politics at district level elections. As part of our public education on the exercise, we continue our talk with Dr. Eric Odrosai today. He's technical advisor to the local government ministry. He's also with the Local Government Institute, and then he joins us here in the studio. The number is what we have in front of you on the screen there. Talk to us. What do you want to know about the referendum? And are you those people who are motivated to go to the polls or to get out and vote? Because we need a certain percentage. Doc, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And many thanks for coming. So when we talk about the processes, the political processes, first of all, what does it mean?
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. When we talk about the political processes leading to the referendum, it means the compliance with the constitutional provision for the amendment of an entrenched provision of this kind. Okay. We have a number of entrenched provisions in the Constitution, and each of the entrenched provisions requires a certain political process. Okay. One of them, for this particular entrenched provision, is the fact that there is the need for an amendment bill to be developed. After developing the amendment bill, that amendment bill would have to be gazetted for 6 months. Okay. We have gone through that process. After that, it requires of Ghanaians to express their view on it through a referendum. And that is where we are. Why is this happening? This is happening because it borders on the democratic development of Ghana. That is, whether or not we should introduce partisan politics or multi-partisan system into our local government election so that it will be consistent with what happens at the national level. Many people think that we are going to do this because of the election of MMDCEs. It is true that the election of MMDCEs triggered the amendment of Article 55.3, but the amendment of Article 55.3 is to democratize the local government system by ensuring that that particular system is in consonance with what happens at the national level. Because presidents are elected on partisan basis, MPs are elected on partisan basis, so chief executives and other functionaries within the local government system must also be elected on partisan basis, so that we'll see some consistency in the governance architecture.
Is that what this is all about, consistency?
It's, yes, consistency and deepening local democracy. Because at the moment, local government system is one party. The ruling party appoints the chief executive. The ruling party appoints 1/3 of the members of the assembly. No other political parties is allowed by law to get involved. In that case, that particular political party dominates, which is not good for democracy. If really we have 19 political parties on the EC's website or more, and only 2 political parties dominate an election over a period of more than 25 years of democracy, which means we are not growing our democracy. So I think it is about time all of us go out to amend or to vote yes, so we can amend 55.3 to ensure democratic consistency.
So that's also what you mentioned feeds into what happens at the national level. That's and I will try for us to have a conversation where we mirror what happens at the national level at the local level if it so happens, and the repercussions and the things that we need to really deal with. Okay. But again, back to the political processes. You spoke about having it gazetted and then having to go to the referendum. Is that it?
Once it gets to the referendum, we need 40% of qualified voters to vote. If they come out to vote, we need 75% of the qualified voters to vote yes in favor of the referendum question. So for instance, the referendum question will be put: are you in favor of allowing political parties to participate in local level election? The answer can be yes or no, depending on what you think. The Electoral Commission has indicated to us that yellow is going to represent yes, dark brown is going to represent a no. So you go in there, they give you 3 ballot papers: 1 for the referendum, 1 for your assembly member, 1 for the unit committee member. So if you want to vote yes, you vote yes and you put it in the referendum box. You choose your assembly member and then you put it in the assembly member box. And then you choose your unit committee member and you put it in the unit committee member box. Do not vote 1 and then leave the polling station. You vote 3 times. Vote
3 times. I mean, we've seen that there are several educational programs that we do in the run-up to every election, but we still count rejected ballots. We still count spoiled ballots. Now, this sounds a bit more complex, to be honest. I don't know if it doesn't to you.
Well,
but because you're voting for 3 different things, and they're not necessarily, you know,
same.
yeah. So how are we going to ensure that we reduce the number of spoiled ballots, especially when we're looking at, we have a threshold?
That's right. Thank you very much. What we are doing is that we have joined forces with Information Services Department, the National Commission for Civic Education, and the Electoral Commission. So we would undertake voter education on even how to vote and even sample ballot papers, so people will know where to vote, how to vote, so we'll minimize the voter ballot papers that are normally destroyed. I can also say that the Ministry of Local Government has taken this serious, and they have a number of teams working through the various regions and the local government, so they will be able to sensitize people. Many a time we see people talking about the elections generally, but we don't teach them actually what they should do on the day of elections, especially our blind brothers, our people with disability and all of that. So we are now engaging them, so we'll be able to also encourage their participation and guide them, so we will reduce the spoiled ballots. Because already in the past, we do not have a lot of voter turnout when it comes to local government elections. This time around, we have the referendum there. And unfortunately or fortunately for us, we have a standard under the referendum we need to meet. 40% turnout, 75% must vote yes. So we have to whip their enthusiasm so that they come out massively to vote, because we cannot afford to lose any of the ballot papers by way of spoiled ballot. No.
It sounds like a do or die affair. It is not, by the way.
It is a do, but not die.
It is a do, but not die. So at this point, you talk about how we need to get people to understand. But even for me as a media person, it hadn't really gone down that local for. I understood in my second interview, or the interview before this one, that we're voting for 3 different things on the same day.
That's right.
But then, do people get it as part of the educational packages that perhaps the ministries have done? Do people get it that if you don't vote for 3 different things, you don't leave the station?
That is the message we are trying to send now. We've started. You know, voter education is the mandate of Electoral Commission. Civic education is the mandate of NCCE. Local government is coming in because of the political process, because of the policy change process. You know, so we are supporting all of them to make sure that at least we send this message down. It is very true that people may not understand that you have to vote 3. But what we are doing is get to the bottom, get down there, get to the villages, let people come out. Let them understand that it is an expression of opinion. Nobody should compel you to vote yes or no. Vote as you think right, vote as you deem fit. But we need to help you to understand the issues. That if you vote yes, it means you are reclaiming a power that has been taken away from you for a very long time. Because I do not possibly understand why the president is elected, MP is elected, but chief executive is not elected. When it gets to the chief executive, the most important person who is expected to bring development to us, somebody sits in Accra and appoint the person for us. The person messes up, he doesn't bring development, we cannot impeach the person. Why? The checks and balances in the system cannot work, because the government in power already has 1/3. The government in power can have the opportunity of blocking it if they are able to get some assembly members to get in there. So already the 2/3 majority needed to impeach a non-performing chief executive is not there. Aside from that, it becomes difficult to hold this chief executive accountable. And then when you add it to the various acrimonious relationship between chief executives and MPs, anytime a chief executive wants to become an MP after serving his 2 terms, it tells you that it is about time we elect our chief executives so we can hold them responsible and accountable.
It comes back to the point about partisan elections at the local level. But just a quick question, and I have some questions that I'll be taking from our viewers who are texting us via WhatsApp. But I just want to find out, when you say we know about the threshold, first of all, but we don't really seem to have done a lot of education. And you say it's the responsibility of the Electoral Commission. Do you get the sense that it's the work that they've done so far is enough to get us the 70% that we require, even the 40%?
Yeah, so far so good. I think Electoral Commission, we have set up a national campaign team, a national education team, made up of Electoral Commission, Ministry of Local Government, Information Services Department, and NCCE. As we speak now, they are all on the field campaigning. We have information service officers training their people, explaining things to people. We also have NCCE also doing it. So we have back-to-back education. Next week, you see Ministry of Local Government staff and other staff of the ministries and the various district assemblies also on the field campaigning and educating people. We all have to be on board of in this particular issue to be able to send the message down that we need our power back.
We need our power back. I'm curious, if we don't vote to get our power back, if we fail at this referendum, a very big if, what can we do?
I know we're going to be successful, but in the unlikely event that we fail, what it then means is that Ghanaians are saying they want chief executives elected, but not on partisan basis. Already, the article that would take away the power from the president to appoint chief executives and give it back to citizens is in Parliament, which is Article 2431. It has already gone through the motions. It is left with Parliament to vote on it. The Constitution requires that 2/3 majority of members of Parliament must vote to approve that particular bill. However, none of the two political parties commands 2/3 majority. So we need a bipartisan consensus on the matter so they will be able to carry it forward. If they are able to approve that one and citizens fail to approve 55-3, what it then means is that MMDCEs will be elected but not on partisan basis. But if they approve 55-3 on December 17th, then and Parliament approve 2431, then it means MMDCEs will be elected, but on partisan basis. That is not the only thing. Once they approve the referendum question on December 17th, implicitly, it means we have politicized the local government system. Assembly members subsequently will be elected on partisan basis. Unit committee members will be elected on partisan basis. A chief executive will be elected on partisan basis. Then that consistency is there. But now we are playing ostrich. We are doing assembly member campaign, and when you see people's posters, it tells you where they belong to. People are even proud. People are even proud to tell you that we have agreed, or our party has agreed on a common candidate. But that's what people say. You get somebody to tell you we have agreed on a common candidate. But that is not the way to go. It is a violation of the law. But, so if we think that is what we want to do, why don't we open it up and say that, well, local level elections is partisan, political parties can sponsor candidates, independent candidates can also come.
And I've asked this question over and over again about how we're going to now begin to mirror what is happening at the national level, at the local level. So all the monetization that we've complained about is going to be reflected at the local level. That the major problems that we've seen in our national elections that we have not been able to resolve with electoral reforms are all now going to be transferred to the district level elections, and we're going to be in a total mess.
Question then is, if what is practiced at the national level is not good, but yet we still practice it and we haven't abandoned it, why don't we think we should send it to the local level?
No, we've not abandoned it. There are real issues that we know of. There are real issues that people have advised us on, and we have not taken the necessary steps to correct those problems. So the question is, why do we take those problems now down to the
it is one thing identifying the problems, and the other thing looking at the system. The system at the national level is constitutional. That is why we are practicing it. It may have its own challenges. This is not to say that if you import the system to the local level, we are likely to have those same challenges. Because when you look at the assembly level elections, if you want to spend money, then it is you, the candidate, who wants to do that, because everything about it should be free. And it is basically free. Campaign platforms are mounted by the Electoral Commission and it should be free. But
we know the realities.
Realities, that is it. And at the national level, same. Nobody forces an MP to go and borrow or to go and take loans. So
now the discussion then is that since we are all pushing for a yes,
that's right,
to allow for partisan elections at the district level,
that's right,
what are we doing to make sure that we know the lessons that we have learned at the national level, that we don't repeat the problems at the local level? How do we go about it?
The opportunity we have here is that in the roadmap to the election of MMDCEs, a number of consequential amendment has been earmarked undertaken. So once we are able to go through this consequential amendment, it will help us minimize the expected challenges or the problems of election of MMDCEs. A number of people have raised a number of issues. Some financial, some security. Somebody would say that if you elect an opposition chief executive and you have a ruling government president coming in, what are the security implications? So because of that, the Securities and Intelligence Act is a candidate for amendment. Somebody has also said that, look, if you elect an opposition chief executive and then you have another government in power, how would that chief executive access the common fund to develop the area? So it means the Local Governance Act, which governs the common fund, is a candidate for amendment. But that even notwithstanding, when you look at Article 252 of the Constitution, common fund is an entitlement fund. So every district assembly is entitled to that fund. Reason why currently or in times past, common fund has delayed or does not go regularly is that the money may not be there, or central government may intentionally delay. But the chief executive cannot complain because he was appointed by the government. If he complains, he can be sacked. But if you elect the chief executive and he is from another political party, he's promised people to use the common fund to do development, the money is not coming, he will make noise. In fact, the law allows them to go to court to make sure that the money is released. If you deduct funds at source without the approval of the opposition chief executive, you can imagine what will happen in this country. So for me, I think it will improve checks and balances. Aside from that, it will grow the smaller political parties. So some political parties that may not be able to even win any seat in parliament or win the presidency can at least win a chief executive seat and start preparing themselves from there. I've always been saying that if our friend Dr. Mapako Syndrome works his way out very well, PPP can easily win the KEA seat, though they are not in parliament. And that is the way we build the democracy. That is the way we nurture smaller political parties. So Ghana does not develop into a two-party state.
So hopefully to also deal with the winner-takes-all syndrome that we've talked about over and over again. Well, let me go to the questions that I have sent from our viewers. This one is a very interesting one based on what we've just discussed. It says, it's from Koshi Badohu Ayivo in Denu. He says the proposal to elect DCEs is illegal, impractical, and potentially chaotic. Ghana is not a federal state, but a republican. It's a very long message. I'm not going to read all. With an executive president who is responsible for the development of every inch of the country. Election of DCEs takes away a strata of governance from the president, effectively making Ghana a federal state. He goes on and on, but I'll just send it there.
Yeah, but that is also not correct. Ghana is not a federal state. Our constitution, to start with, makes Ghana a unitary state. If you want to look at federalism, you look at how the center relates to the regions. Our regional ministers are not elected. As soon as we start electing regional ministers, then we are going into federalism. Because we are not electing regional ministers, we are not a federal state. Two, our constitution under chapter 20 requires of government to decentralize the governance power from center to local government. And then three, let me also explain to our friend that chief executive do not represent president. Article 243 of the constitution says the chief executive is the chief representative of the central government. So the central government is different from the president. The president is the head of the central government.
But how do you can't easily, divorce the two. They're really pretty tight.
You can in law.
So the president is head of the central government.
The president is the head of the central government,
and he has a representative. Or if the central government has a representative in the districts, it is certainly he's reporting. We know how it works on the.
So that person does not represent the president as a person. So today the president is not there. The vice president is acting. He represents the central government. You see, many people think that the chief executive represents the president. I think that's
a very technical explanation of it. But people, if you're looking at how it affects my life as someone who lives in a district,
that's right.
You're looking at this man, DCE, who is representing the man that I voted for.
He's representing the government that is in power
But
now.
he is representing the man that you voted for in the president.
You see, when you stretch that argument, then it means that district, that DC has no responsibility.
Okay, so in order not to get all technical in local governance, which is where we seem to be going, his concern is that it is illegal. He thinks it is impractical. He thinks it has the potential of bringing the chaos, like I said, that we have at the national level to the local level. And I want to move on from him. So give me a very quick wrap.
Well, for me, it is legal. Anybody who thinks it is illegal can go to the Supreme Court for legislative interpretation. It's because we want to perfect it legally. That's why we are amending 2431 and 55.3. It is practicable because it is happening in a number of countries. You go to South Africa, the city of Johannesburg, and then Cape Town are being managed by opposition mayors. Boris Johnson was a mayor in London before becoming the prime minister. And then when you go to Turkey, the mayor of Istanbul, once you win the mayor of Istanbul seat and you work so hard to bring development, you are likely to become the Turkish president. So it's happening in a number of countries. There's no illegality. Anybody who thinks or feels there's illegality about it, the person can go to Supreme Court and challenge it.
Okay. So I'm being selective with the questions because I think that people still have
more questions.
Because we're advocating for people to go and vote, to call what they're feeling misconception or thinking misconceptions. And I have one of them here so that we can help, with education and also in the subsequent public advocacy material. She says, I will vote no. Why should learned people encourage assembly and unit committee elections to be partisan? Does it mean primaries will be held in electoral areas by parties to present candidates? She says, I will vote a big no. Let us amend Article 243 and stop it there. Let's elect MMDCEs based on the merits of an individual. It's from Foga in Aflau.
Well, that he's entitled to his opinion. But I think that as to how to get candidates for MMDCEs, we leave it to the political parties to use their internal democratic processes to do that. We should remember that it is not only political parties. It is also independent candidates, people who think that they can represent the people, they can bring development to the people, can also put themselves up. CSOs can sponsor candidates, religious groups can sponsor candidates, persons with disabilities can sponsor candidates. So it is not open to only political parties. Okay. It's open to all key stakeholders who think that they will be able to bring development to the people. Okay,
this person doesn't add their name. He says the constitution also needs to be amended to reduce the powers and authority of the president, particularly in the appointment of IGP and other heads of state security institutions, the appointment of boards of directors, etc., in order to grow our democracy.
Well, my answer to the person is that the entire executive chapter of the Constitution is entrenched. So then it will require a number of referendums or referendums. But we should also know that when you are going for a referendum, you can only ask one question. So then it means we have a number of amendments to do. I'm sure that is why the report of the Constitution Review Commission is still outstanding, because they made recommendations to amend a number of the entrenched provisions. And I can imagine a number of referendums that can amend it. So that is the dilemma and the challenge we find ourselves in. Okay,
so I'll just take maybe 3 and then you respond to that, so that we can take a bit more and then even as we wrap up. Mukaila Jones Adia in Kerry says, in fact, President Akufo-Addo should deserve some commendation since he's about to make the dream of the referendum come true to enable us votes. Indeed, democracy is really practical under the watch of President Akufo-Addo. Okay, so you go on and on. Let's take some more people who have perhaps questions. It's very good. We're going to vote and select our MMDCEs. You say you don't add your name. This one says the election of MMDCEs will be in order, but are we well prepared for its consequences? And what are we going to be? And are we going to be able to handle it when it happens? From Abdullah Abdul Razak in Tamale. I don't know if it's good for you, so for me to take 2 more.
You can.
Okay, so Ghanaians should go and vote yes to the upcoming referendum. You say Abdul Mumen says from Bimbila says the referendum on elections of MMDCEs, my vote is no. I wish I could carry majority of the votes at the end of the day. Well, you don't add the reason why, but yeah, I'll let Doc address you. Since your vote is no, maybe he can change your mind before we leave here. Kudos to JoyNews. You want to know the 1/3 of government appointees will also be voted for. It says, I want to know if the 1/3 of government appointees will also be voted for, since it will still be appointed should the referendum go well. I'm not sure if I understand it. Do you understand?
Yeah, I understand. If I get his question, he wants to know whether the government appointees system would also be abolished so that the entire members of the assemblies will be elected. It looks as if that is what is going to happen.
Really?
If you want to fully democratize the local government system, that is what should happen. Because in parliament, you don't have any government appointees there. Why do you need a government appointee at a local government level? So once we get over and done with the referendum, I think the consequential amendment may also have to consider that if we really mean true democracy at the local government level.
Okay, the consequences, the other texter. says the consequences. Are we ready for
yes, you know,
I think you've talked fairly
the
about
local
it.
government system is managed by a decentralization policy. Fortunately, the old policy is ending this December. A new policy is being developed, and there is going to be a national blueprint to govern and guide the administrative and governance relationship between an elected MMDCE and the rest of the assemblies. We should also know that since we are going to elect assembly members this year on non-partisan basis, it is likely that if chief executives are elected in 2021, we're going to have a non-partisan assembly working with an elected chief executive. So there is the need for a blueprint for a very effective governance and to manage the transitional process. So all these things are there. The roadmap Ministry of Local Government has developed has what we call post-referendum activities, which would build the capacities of people and undertake change management exercises for people to appreciate what is going to happen. Because it's going to be a new governance system, and people must understand to cooperate and support so it will bring development.
The gentleman, the one who says is going to vote no, do you have any?
Yeah, I think, my brother, let me tell you that when you vote no, you have disadvantaged yourself, because you give the power to assembly members to go and approve your own, the government appointed MMDCE. The way they exercise the power, are you happy? Some assembly members will go and vote 3 times. As to why they do that, we don't know. But they are exercising a delegated power. Is that how we ask them to exercise the power? Now we want to take the power back. And it will also reduce corruption, because if you are a candidate for a DCE position, you cannot bribe all 100,000 people. You can bribe a few. But since the electorate constitutes about 100,000 people, it will be difficult to bribe all of them. So the best and the most popular and the most competent candidate would emerge. So I urge you to change your mind, go out there and vote yes, so we can take the power back from the president and give it to the citizens to promote local democracy. Taking
the power back from the president. The election of the MMDCEs is a good thing, and I entreat all qualified voters to take part in the exercise. Thumbs up to the current administration for being, you say, quote, too democratic. Emmanuel Bombande, SDA Hospital, okay. Hospital in SD Hospital in Obwase. Good afternoon. We really want MMDCs to be elected for some accountability, but it should be devoid of all political parties. We will still experience political violence when political parties are involved in MMDC election. We don't want political parties' involvement in MMDC election. From Paul in Keta. Okay. No, he's not. And he's not from the Electoral Commission. Someone is talking about the voter exhibition. Okay, so I think the reform process isn't properly thought out. What happens when we vote yes for DCEs to be elected when the president still appoints regional ministers who head the regional coordinating council? That's also the head of the security in each of the regions. It's from Bono, Richard in Bono, in the Bono region. He also adds that currently DCEs report to the regional ministers. So I need to understand how this is going to work. For instance, the NDC DCE would not have a good working rapport with his regional minister. He goes on and on.
No, I mean, we are not a federal state, so regional ministers cannot be elected. Apart from that, the regional minister chairs the regional coordinating council, which is not an elective body. They are just a mere coordinating unit. So the chief executives would have to work with the regional coordinating council for the purpose of development. They coordinate development. They don't report to them. They supervise development in the district. So the regional minister is there to represent central government to coordinate development. But the chief executive is an elected person to bring development to the people. They are two different people. Okay. You know? So there are people who have also said that if we have a chief executive who is messing up and he's not working, would we be saddled with an ineffective chief executive for the next 4 years? In the Local Governance Act, there is a recall provision. Even if your assembly member is not working, he is ineffective, after 1 year, 30% of the voters from the electoral area can petition the Electoral Commission to recall that particular assembly member, for them to vote a new assembly member to replace him. So that same provision can apply to a chief executive who is not performing. You know, so there are a lot of checks and balances in the system. But because of the imposition of chief executive by a political institution on a seemingly non-political institution, it's becoming difficult for these checks and balances in the system to be activated. But I tell you that if we are able to elect chief executives, checks and balances we will upscale checks and balances. The chief executives will know that they are accountable to the people. They will respect traditional authorities, When the citizens cough, they will listen because they know they will come back to them to ask for their vote.
Okay, this texter is asking for more education. She says that when you come to Fantiakwa in Begro, the NCCE is not educating the general public at all. Most of our people don't even know about this referendum. We need more education on this. Gabriel from Begro. Well, Gabriel, why don't you appoint yourself an advocate for this election, this referendum? Go out there, talk to people, let them understand. But I think you can note this down. I mean, the area is Begro, maybe when you
Begro, yes, I've noted it. We have a team for the Eastern region coming round, and I've noted Begro. I'll ask them to flag it and specifically come to Begro to mount a platform there and do a little bit of education and even give out T-shirts and other flyers which contains summarized information on the referendum to enable people to appreciate the issues.
Please, I want to know, should Ghanaians vote no? Will that affect the election of MMDCEs, and what will its implications be? Samuel Oheme from Konongo.
If Ghanaians vote no, still chief executives will be elected, because the amendment to the article that will allow us to elect chief executive is not in the hands of citizens, it's in the hands of parliament. So once parliament passes that one, even if citizens vote no against the 55-3, we'll still elect chief executive, but we are going to elect them on non-partisan basis.
Okay, so I'll take your final comments, but let me quickly take a few. Ask Electoral Commission when we are going to be paid for the exhibition work we did. Okay, so this is a question he's unable to he's unable to answer this particular question. But I have a lot of messages here. I may not be able to go through it all. Shawadu Idrisu from Zabzugu says, I think in voting MMDCs, it should be partisan based to avoid confusion between ruling party chairman and MMDCEs. Okay, you want to pass a quick comment on that one?
I think once it's partisan, it's partisan. I mean, their internal partisan politics is their matter. What we want to see is an elected chief executive who will be responsible to the people, who will be transparent to the people, who will not say it was somebody from Accra who appointed him, so he will not bring development, who will respect the people. That's the most important, and that is where true democracy is seen at play.
Someone is asking about rigging, and I don't want to read his message because of the way he puts it, but he has concerns about rigging.
Rigging the referendum?
Yes.
And who is going to rig the referendum? Because the referendum is taking place on the same day that we elect assembly members. We have a number of polling agents there. The results will be declared at the national level, I think, by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. So we should all open our eyes and make sure that what he calls rigging doesn't happen. But I don't see how somebody will go and rig, because this is about people expressing their view voluntarily. And it is a democratic exercise and civic responsibility exercise that people must exercise.
I will vote no, since the president still may have the power to fire MMDCEs, and this will be rampant in areas where the president is on different side as the MMDCE. This will in turn cost us more money for by-elections or for fired MMDCE.
Let me allay the fears of my friend. Currently, Article 2433, which gives the power to the president to fire a chief executive, is also a candidate for amendment. In fact, the bill is already with the Attorney General's Department for them to look at it. So, in as much as we are amending the power to appoint, we are also amending the power to fire. So that at least once we elect you, we know you have security of tenure.
Okay, that's interesting. Security of tenure. That's a very interesting point you make there. And this person says he wants to find out, in line with the election ahead, what can the youth do to support the efficiency of the referendum? Again, how can individuals be enrolled or employed in the local government for this exercise?
We are inviting the youth to join. You can come to the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. You can go to NCCE. You can go to any of the offices, especially the Ministry of Local Government. When you get to the Ministry of Local Government, you can talk to the receptionist that you want to be an ambassador for the referendum. We can engage you. Aside from that, we have a team that will be visiting all the tertiary institutions. We're going to talk to the SRCs of the respective institutions, since on the day of voting they will be in schools so that they will be able to appreciate it. Most of the school children or the students in the second cycle institutions, in their social studies program, they do referendum, they do constitution, and this is an opportunity for us to explain things to them. So we're going to have people there. So the various SRCs can get in touch with the Ministry of Local Government and the NCC. We'll join hands and then campaign together.
Sounds good. This is my final question, I promise. This person is called Apieje from Sunya. He says, even now, areas considered to be opposition strongholds are denied developmental projects. What will happen when a district is headed by a DCE of a party in opposition? Let's move cautiously.
That is not true. District prepare their development plans. Common fund is given equally. No district in Ghana can say that they have been denied of their common fund. It's all about leadership. If one assembly is doing well than the other, it means there's something in the leader. That is why if you elect chief executive, central government will bring the resources, but chief executive would also go out of their way to mobilize additional resources through the IGF, collection of property rate, and all of that to support or supplement what central government will bring so that they can see massive development. So election of MMDCs will never deny assemblies or district assemblies of any development. It will rather promote development and deepen local democracy through effective accountability.
So for those of you who are thinking of voting no, I really hope that we've been able to change your mind. But before he goes, a very quick final word. What should be the takeaway from this conversation for everyone watching? Everyone
watching on 17th December, wake up very early in the morning, go to the polling station, demand that they give you 3 papers, ballot papers. The first one, you vote for the referendum, vote yes. Second one, you vote for your assembly member. Third one, you vote for a unit committee member. Don't stay at home. Go early, vote early. By 5 p.m., go there, they will declare the results. Do not be left out. This is a decision-making point. Let us make history together. Together, we can win. Ghana needs you, and democracy must be sustained at the national and local government level.
Bottom line, you're taking away the power from the president, you're giving it to the people. That's what this is all about. Doc, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Dr. Eric Odrosai, he is a technical advisor to the local government ministry, but he's also with the Local Government Institute, and he's been helping us with perspectives on the December 17 referendum that we need all of you to go out to vote, because if you don't, we may not be able to reach the 70% yes, we may not be able to reach the 40% turnout, which is what is required for this referendum to be successful. Thank you very much, Doc, once again.
Pleasure.